Someone is rude to you. Maybe they interrupt you mid-sentence. Maybe they dismiss what you said with a condescending comment. Maybe they are openly disrespectful in front of others. And in that moment, you feel it. The anger rising, the urge to snap back, the desire to put them in their place. But you are caught between two bad options. You can react with anger and look just as bad as they do. Or you can say nothing and feel weak for not standing up for yourself. Neither feels right. Reacting makes you lose control. Staying silent makes you lose respect. You are stuck because you do not know there is a third option. The Stoics mastered this third option. Marcus Aurelius dealt with senators who openly disrespected him. Epictetus faced masters who treated him cruelly. Seneca navigated a court full of people trying to undermine him. Yet none of them lost their composure. They did not fight rudeness with rudeness. They did not stay silent and accept disrespect. They responded in ways that left rude people speechless. Not through aggression, but through unshakable calm that exposed the other person's lack of control. Today I will show you 7 Stoic methods to respond to rudeness that protect your dignity while leaving the rude person with nothing to say. Method number 4 works instantly when someone tries to provoke you in public. By the end, you will know how to handle disrespect without losing yourself. If you want to command respect through composure instead of aggression, subscribe. Let us master this together. Let us begin. The first method is the most powerful and the simplest. When someone is rude to you, pause for 3 to 5 seconds, look at them calmly, and say nothing. Just observe them with steady eye contact. Let the silence do the work. Rudeness expects an immediate reaction. They want you flustered, defensive, or angry. When you pause instead of reacting, you break their script. The silence creates an uncomfortable space that they suddenly have to fill. And in that space, their rudeness becomes visible to everyone, including them. You are not saying anything, but your calm composure is saying everything. It is saying their behavior has no power over you. It is saying you are not worth disrupting my peace. Without a single word, you have exposed their lack of control while demonstrating yours. Here is how to use it. The moment someone says something rude, do not respond immediately. Pause. Count to 3 in your head. Look at them directly, not with anger or disgust, just calm observation. Let them sit in the silence they created. Most people will either backtrack, try to explain themselves, or expose their rudeness further by getting more aggressive. Either way, you win. If they backtrack, they revealed their behavior was inappropriate. If they escalate, they reveal their lack of composure while you remain steady. Someone I know was in a team meeting when a colleague interrupted them rudely mid-sentence to dismiss their idea with a condescending comment. Instead of snapping back or shrinking away, they paused. They looked at the interrupter calmly for about 4 seconds without saying anything, just steady eye contact. The room went quiet. The interrupter started to get visibly uncomfortable. Then he started explaining himself. Well, I just meant that maybe we should. He was backtracking without anyone asking him to. The person who had been interrupted did not say a word during this. They just maintained that calm look. When the interrupter finished fumbling through his explanation, they simply said, "Thank you," and continued presenting their idea. The room respected them more after that moment than they had before. Not because they fought back, but because they stayed completely composed while the rude person lost his footing. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the power of silence. He understood that sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. When you meet rudeness with calm silence, you are not being passive. You are being powerful. You are showing that their words have no effect on your peace. Marcus would say composure in the face of disrespect speaks louder than any comeback. The person who can stand calmly in uncomfortable silence while others squirm has mastered themselves. And that mastery is what leaves people speechless, not because you destroyed them with words, but because your calm exposed their chaos. 3 to 5 seconds of calm eye contact, no words, just steady presence. This stops rudeness in its tracks by refusing to give it the reaction it needs to survive. Silence creates space and exposes. But this next method fills that space with something that disarms completely. Method 2. Agree with obvious exaggeration to disarm. Here is a technique that sounds counterintuitive but works brilliantly. When someone insults you, agree with them using such obvious exaggeration that it makes their attack absurd. Rude comments are designed to make you defensive. They want you to argue, explain yourself, prove them wrong. That is where they have power. The entire setup depends on you resisting. But when you agree with exaggeration so extreme it is obviously not serious, you collapse the whole attack. They have nothing to push against. The confrontation they wanted cannot happen because you are not fighting. Here is how it works. They say you are always late. Instead of defending yourself or making excuses, you respond calmly. You are absolutely right. I have never been on time for anything in my entire life. Delivered with a completely straight face. No sarcasm. Just matter-of-fact agreement taken to an absurd extreme. Or they say you think you know everything. You respond, yes, I do know literally everything about everything. It is honestly exhausting being this knowledgeable. The exaggeration is so obvious it makes their original criticism look ridiculous without you having to argue a single point. Someone I know had a family member who made the same passive-aggressive comment at every gathering. You are wasting your potential. You could have been so much more. For years, they would defend their career choices, explain their reasoning, try to justify their path. Every time it turned into an argument that left them drained and nothing changed, then they tried something different. At the next family dinner, the comment came as always. You really settled for less than you could have achieved. Instead of the usual defense, they responded calmly, you are absolutely right. I have completely wasted my entire life and accomplished nothing of any value whatsoever, said with a straight face. The family member froze. There was no argument to have. The exaggeration was so extreme it made the original criticism sound absurd. They tried to backtrack. Well, I did not mean it exactly like that, but the power was completely gone. The comment that used to start a fight just landed flat. After that gathering, the frequency of those comments dropped significantly, not because of confrontation, but because the tactics stopped working. No defense meant no argument, just calm, exaggerated agreement that made the rudeness look foolish. Epictetus taught that when you refuse to defend against an opinion, it cannot attack you. If someone calls you foolish, and you calmly agree that yes, you are incredibly foolish, where does the insult go? Nowhere. The attack needs resistance to have power. When you agree without any defensiveness, you show their words have zero effect on how you see yourself. That unshakable confidence is what leaves them speechless. Not because you won an argument, but because you refuse to have one. The key is delivery, calm, straight-faced, no sarcasm or bitterness, just obvious exaggeration that removes all power from their attack by refusing to resist it. If you have used calm exaggeration to disarm a rude comment and watch the attack collapse because you refuse to defend, drop I agree completely below. Your example of removing resistance could inspire someone else who is still exhausting themselves arguing with rudeness. This next method redirects their energy entirely by forcing clarity. Method 3. Ask them to clarify their intention with neutral tone. This one is especially effective against passive aggression. When someone makes a rude comment disguised as a joke or concern, ask them calmly to explain what they meant. Watch them either own their rudeness openly or backtrack immediately. Most choose backtrack. The genius of this method is it forces hidden rudeness into the open. Passive-aggressive people rely on plausible deniability. They insult you, but frame it as just kidding or just being honest or just concerned about you. This lets them be rude while maintaining an escape route if called out. But when you ask them to clarify with complete neutrality, that escape route closes. You are not accusing them of anything. You are simply asking for clarity, and that innocent request creates an impossible situation for them. Here is the exact approach. They make a comment that feels rude but is wrapped in something else. You respond with calm curiosity. I want to make sure I understand. What exactly did you mean by that? Or simply, can you explain what you meant? Your tone is genuinely neutral, not accusatory, not defensive, just seeking clarity. This puts them in a trap of their own making. If they explain honestly, they have to admit the rudeness. If they say nothing, I did not mean anything, they admit their comment had no substance. Either way, the mask comes off. Someone I know had a family member who made the same passive-aggressive comment at every gathering. You are wasting your potential. You could have been so much more. For years, they would defend their career choices, explain their reasoning, try to justify their path. Every time it turned into an argument that left them drained and nothing changed, then they tried something different. At the next family dinner, the comment came as always. You really settled for less than you could have achieved. Instead of the usual defense, they responded calmly. You are absolutely right. I have completely wasted my entire life and accomplished nothing of any value whatsoever, said with a straight face. The family member froze. There was no argument to have. The exaggeration was so extreme it made the original criticism sound absurd. They tried to backtrack. Well, I did not mean it exactly like that, but the power was completely gone. The comment that used to start a fight just landed flat. After that gathering, the frequency of those comments dropped significantly, not because of confrontation, but because the tactics stopped working. No defense meant no argument, just calm, exaggerated agreement that made the rudeness look foolish. Seneca often used questions to dismantle weak arguments. He understood that asking for clarity is more powerful than making accusations. When you force vague rudeness to define itself, it collapses. The person either has to be openly rude and look bad, or admit their comment was meaningless and look foolish. Your calm question does the work without you having to fight. Ask neutrally. What did you mean by that? Can you explain? This exposes hidden rudeness by removing the hiding place. Clarification works beautifully for hidden attacks. But when rudeness happens in front of others, you need a response that works instantly without breaking stride. That is what the next method does. Remember method 4 I mentioned, the one that works instantly in public? Here it is. When someone is rude or dismissive, thank them sincerely for their input, then immediately continue what you were doing. No pause, no dwelling. Just acknowledgement and forward momentum. Rude people want a reaction. They want you to get defensive, argue, or show that their comment affected you. When you thank them and move on immediately, you acknowledge they spoke, but give zero power to what they said. You are not ignoring them, which would look weak. You are not arguing with them, which would look reactive. You are simply thanking them for their perspective and continuing forward as if their rudeness was not worth stopping for. This drives home one message. You are not important enough to disrupt what I am doing. Here is how to use it. They interrupt with a dismissive comment. They make a rude remark during your presentation. They try to undermine you in front of others. Your response is immediate and simple. Thank you for that perspective. Or thank you for sharing that, said with a neutral or even slightly warm tone. Not sarcastic, not cold, just genuine acknowledgement. Then, without pausing or addressing the content of their rudeness, you continue exactly what you were doing. If you were speaking, keep speaking. If you were presenting, keep presenting. The key is zero hesitation. The thank you and the continuation happen as one smooth motion. Someone I know was giving a presentation to senior leadership when one person interrupted with a dismissive comment. This approach will not work in our market. said with condescension, clearly trying to throw the presenter off. Instead of defending the approach or getting flustered, the presenter paused briefly, looked at the person, and said, "Thank you for that input." Then immediately continued the presentation without addressing the criticism. Did not explain, did not defend, just acknowledged and moved forward. The person who interrupted looked confused for a moment, then sat back. The rest of the room respected the presenter even more because the composure was absolute. After the presentation, multiple people mentioned how professionally the interruption was handled. The dismissive comment that was meant to undermine actually made the presenter look stronger because it was treated as so unimportant it was not worth stopping for. Marcus Aurelius wrote about not letting others control your peace or your path. When someone tries to derail you with rudeness and you simply thank them and continue, you demonstrate complete control. You show that their opinion was noted but has no power to change your direction. Marcus would say your peace is more valuable than their attempt to disturb it. Acknowledge but do not engage. Their rudeness is their problem. Your path forward is yours. When you thank them and keep moving, you show everyone watching that you cannot be pulled off course by someone else's need for conflict. That unshakable forward momentum leaves them with nothing. They threw their rudeness at you and it bounced off without even slowing you down. Thank you for that perspective. Then continue without pause. This works instantly because it removes all power from public rudeness by treating it as insignificant. If these 4 methods are showing you how to handle rudeness with composure instead of confrontation, subscribe for more Stoic wisdom on commanding respect through calm, and like it so others can learn dignity is more powerful than any comeback. This works immediately in public settings, but when rudeness crosses a clear line, this next method establishes boundaries without emotion. Method 5. State boundary. Calmly without emotion or explanation. What do you do when rudeness crosses from annoying to genuinely disrespectful? You set a clear boundary. No anger, no long explanation. Just a calm statement of what you will and will not accept. Rude people test boundaries to see what they can get away with. If you tolerate everything, they learn there are no consequences. But if you explode with anger, they can paint you as the problem. The solution sits between these extremes. A boundary stated as simple fact, delivered without emotion. You are not asking for better treatment. You are informing them of the condition required for you to continue engaging. That subtle difference changes everything. The words are straightforward. When their tone or behavior becomes truly disrespectful, you say calmly, "I do not engage when spoken to that way." Or "That tone does not work with me." Or "I am happy to continue this conversation when the tone changes." You state it as fact, not negotiation. Then you stop talking. Let silence do the rest. They now have a choice. Adjust their behavior and the conversation continues. Or do not adjust and the conversation ends. Either outcome protects your dignity. Someone I know dealt with a coworker who would escalate to insulting language whenever discussions got heated. This had been the pattern for months. They had tried ignoring it, hoping it would stop. They had tried diplomatic comments about keeping things professional. Nothing changed. Then, during one tense discussion, the coworker started with the insults again. This time, instead of continuing through it or getting angry, the person stopped mid-sentence and said calmly, "I am happy to continue this discussion when the tone changes." Then went completely silent. The coworker tried to keep arguing. "Did you hear what I said? We need to finish this." The response was the same calm statement. "When the tone changes, I will be here." Nothing more. No lecture about respect. No explanation of why the behavior was unacceptable. Just the boundary and silence. The coworker realized the conversation would not continue until he adjusted. He took a breath, reset his tone, and they finished the discussion professionally. After that day, the insulting language disappeared from their interactions, not because of a confrontation or a complaint to management, but because a line was drawn clearly, calmly, and then enforced without wavering. Epictetus taught that you show people how to treat you by what you tolerate. Accept disrespect without consequence, and you teach them disrespect is acceptable. Set a calm boundary and enforce it, and you teach them where your limits are. Epictetus would say, a boundary stated without anger is pure strength. It shows you know your worth and will protect it, but you are not controlled by their behavior. You are simply stating reality. This is how I engage with people. Meet that standard or we do not engage. That clarity leaves no room for argument or negotiation. State it once. Enforce it calmly. I do not engage when spoken to that way. Then silence. No explanation needed. The boundary speaks for itself. Boundaries work when lines are crossed. But sometimes the problem is not a single moment of rudeness. Sometimes it is the person themselves. The next method handles that. Method 6. Respond to the need behind the rudeness, not the rudeness itself. Here is something most people miss completely. Sometimes rudeness is not really about you. It is about stress, insecurity, or loss of control the person is feeling. When you respond to what is actually happening underneath instead of the surface rudeness, the entire interaction changes. This requires reading the situation instead of just reacting to the words. Someone snaps at you over something small. You could snap back or defend yourself. Or you could recognize they are not actually angry about what they said. They are overwhelmed, stressed, or feeling powerless about something else entirely. When you address the real issue instead of the rudeness, you bypass the conflict completely and often solve the actual problem. The approach is simple but requires awareness. They are rude, but you can see signs of stress or frustration underneath. Instead of responding to the rude comment, you respond to what caused it. You seem really stressed. Is everything okay? Or it sounds like you have a lot going on. Is there something I can help with? You are not excusing their rudeness. You are just choosing to address the source instead of the symptom. This often diffuses the situation immediately because you gave them what they actually needed, which was not a fight, but acknowledgement of what they are dealing with. A colleague was working on a project with tight deadlines when a team member snapped at them over a minor mistake. The tone was harsh and completely disproportionate to the error. The natural response would have been to defend the work or snap back about the attitude. Instead, the colleague paused and said, "You seem really overwhelmed with this deadline. Is there something about the project that is stressing you out that we should address?" The team member stopped, took a breath, and admitted, "Yes, I am worried we are not going to hit the deadline, and I do not know how to compress the timeline any further." The conversation shifted immediately from conflict to problem solving. They worked through the timeline concerns together. By the end, the team member apologized for the earlier tone without being asked. The rudeness disappeared because the real issue got addressed. The stress and worry that caused the rudeness got acknowledged and worked through, so the rudeness had no reason to continue. Marcus Aurelius wrote about understanding that people act from their own circumstances and struggles. When someone is rude, they are often in pain themselves. Marcus would say responding to the pain instead of the rudeness is wisdom. It does not mean accepting disrespect, but it means recognizing when rudeness is a symptom of something else. When you address the cause, the symptom often resolves on its own. This approach takes more awareness than the other methods, but when the rudeness comes from stress or overwhelm rather than malice, it works better than any confrontation could. Ask yourself what is really happening here before responding to the surface behavior. Often the rudeness is not the problem, it is the signal of the problem. This works when rudeness comes from stress or overwhelm, but what about people who are chronically rude regardless of circumstances? The final method handles that reality. Method 7. Limit engagement and let your absence speak. Sometimes none of these methods work because the person is not interested in respectful interaction at all. They are chronically rude intentionally. When that becomes clear, the most powerful response is not confrontation. It is distance. You limit their access to you and let your absence deliver the message. This is not about punishment or playing games. It is about recognizing that some people have shown you through consistent behavior that they do not value respectful communication. After you have tried boundaries, calm responses, and understanding approaches, if the rudeness continues, the relationship itself needs to change. Not dramatically, not with announcements. Just naturally reducing how much of your time and energy they get access to. Your presence is valuable. When they lose it, the message becomes clear without you having to say a word. The practice is subtle but deliberate. You reduce engagement to only what is necessary. Responses become brief and polite, but distant. Time spent together shrinks to the minimum required by the situation. You are not rude back. You are not ignoring them completely. You are just no longer investing in someone who has shown they do not respect that investment. The shift is noticeable but undeniable. Someone I know had a friend who was consistently disrespectful. Dismissive comments, rude remarks disguised as jokes, interruptions and condescension that never stopped, despite multiple calm conversations about it. Finally, they decided to stop trying to fix it and just create distance. They stopped initiating contact, stopped sharing personal updates. When the friend reached out, responses were friendly but brief. Invitations were politely declined with vague scheduling conflicts. No drama, no confrontation, just a clear reduction in availability and investment. After a few months of this, the friend noticed and asked directly, "It feels like you have been distant. Is something wrong?" The response was honest but calm. "I have noticed our interactions are not respectful, and I have decided to spend my time with people who communicate differently. Not angry, not accusatory, just a statement of fact." The friend had a choice at that point. Some people hear that and change their behavior because they realize the relationship matters to them. Others do not change, and the distance remains. Either outcome protects your peace. You are no longer carrying the weight of chronic disrespect. Seneca wrote about choosing your company carefully because the people you spend time with shape your life. He understood that not everyone deserves access to your peace and energy. Seneca would say, protecting yourself from consistently disrespectful people is not rudeness. It is self-respect. You tried engaging with dignity. When that was not reciprocated consistently, you withdrew your presence. That withdrawal is not weakness or avoidance. It is the natural consequence of their choice to remain disrespectful. Your energy is finite and valuable. Spend it where it is respected. Reduce engagement quietly. Let distance speak. If asked, state simply that you choose to spend time with people who communicate respectfully. No argument, just reality. These 7 methods are not about winning confrontations or putting rude people in their place. They are about maintaining your dignity and peace, regardless of how others choose to behave. That is the Stoic power. You cannot control their rudeness, but you have complete control over whether it affects you. Marcus dealt with open disrespect. Epictetus faced cruelty. Seneca navigated betrayal. Yet all 3 maintained composure that left their detractors with nothing, not through aggression or silence, but through calm that revealed the other person's lack of control while protecting their own peace. Start with the method that fits your situation. The calm pause, the clarifying question, the boundary without emotion. These are practices of self-respect. When you stop giving rude people the reaction they want, you take away their power. If these 7 methods gave you practical ways to handle rudeness with stoic dignity, subscribe for more wisdom on navigating difficult people while protecting your peace. And if this helped you see that composure is more powerful than confrontation, like it so others can learn to command respect through calm. Rude people will always exist, but they only have power over you if you give it to them. These methods ensure you never do. Thank you for being here. I will see you in the next one. Until then, stay stoic, stay composed, stay dignified. Your peace is not negotiable.